it just really doesn't hit the mark into this composition, and the Sejuani into Seraphine was really rough.
That means that our 5 picks in every game have just been really weird.
Yes.
Right? Like, and I guess it was B5 that was the biggest problem for KT in game 1, like picking Rakan into Poppy, and then we saw just how terribly that went. And then once again, you know, that Lee Sin coming in was really problematic. But Ezreal, Lucian, both of them banned away. Oftentimes you see a Lucian ban and you're like, Deft getting another Lucian ban. But nope, this one's for BDD. And Ashe and the Rumble, definitely bans that have to happen.
I do think that KT should ban the Azir again away from Faker for the same reasons we mentioned it in Game 2. It's just that simple. But then he might get Corki because they have first pick here. See if this is going to be banned by T1 themselves.
I think allowing T1 to go for the Renekton... Okay, never mind. They're going to ban the Renekton themselves. And so that means that KT probably need to ban something. Like the Azir, I think, has to go, right?
I feel like I'm much more concerned about Faker's Azir than his Corki right now.
Yeah.
And even though the Lucian's banned, and that would be a great counter for BDD to play into it, I do think taking the Azir away feels Faker-specific, and that is what they're going to do. They might just leave us with that first pick Corki for T1, or they can go the Sejuani/Vi route here, play Vi Talia. But, you know, you have so much power in this first pick. That's why you chose blue side.
Yeah.
What are they going to go for? I mean, the Corki is what the meta slave does in this situation, right? And when T1 have followed the meta this season, it has not been as successful as when they follow the heart of T1, what the announcer earlier called a traditional T1 style, like what we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the Corki is not quite as bad as far as like, Faker's recent champion pool, right? Like, the Tristana really has been the one that people have been umming and ahhing about. I think the Corki is something that Faker has played very well for quite some time, even though not necessarily finding as much success with it. That's a blind Jace. Huh? All right, we're just going to do it again. This time with a Jace.
When the Jace is the one with the brushes, and he can sit in the brush and fire freely, it feels a lot better than firing into brushes without map control. So while Jace is somewhat risky as a blind pick, you know, Zeus is not known for his Malphite response. I don't know what he's going to play into this one. He might just pick a ranged champion once again.
I mean, the space already indicated it. I think it should be Brand. Nidalee, I don't think does the same thing.
No, you literally can't get value from spears because Pioshik will just press the shield before it hits every time.
I mean, this is still, like, don't get me wrong, in the early game, if you play the Nidalee really effectively, you can just get in there and kill the Ivern and stuff like that. But even then, like, it's difficult. The guy just can, like, press the root caller button and then you sort of stay still for a while.
You need to have a matchup for this Corki and for your top lane where you feel like you have enough control so that Nidalee can actually be proactive early. Cassante into Jace is definitely one where you can kind of weather the storm, but it is not going to be, or it shouldn't be, the Cassante taking topside prio. Corki was also blind. We'll see what BDD's response is going to be here.
Has BDD been practicing the Zeri? Because they could theoretically go for a mid-Zeri angle. There's quite a few...
Mid-Jace and top Mordekaiser. That's the answer.
Okay.
You know what? I was thinking about this right before the hover came through. I was like, you know what? I guess it's Jace mid because there's not really not a lot of you know, 80 champions that are left here you could play mid that you'd feel okay into the Corkias. The Jace is definitely one of them.
I seem to remember a game where there was a guy called 369 and he played Mordekaiser, and it was in a draft that was similar to this, and it was terrifying.
Yes.
We'll see whether Perfect can have a similar sort of performance, because Mordekaiser in the LPL, Mordekaiser in the LCK, very, very different. LPL Mordekaisers are just extremely good. We haven't found the same handle on it. I think Keen is the only one that's kind of got close, but we haven't found the success for the Mord so far here in the LCK. So let's see what Perfect can actually do. As Senna going to be banned away, and there is the Leona ban as well. I was going to say more Shadow Isles vibes, but Mordekaiser is Noxus, so I'm a bit silly.
This is the first time Kalista was left up by KT, and then it gets banned by T1. It looked like they had a great angle to actually play Kalista here into the draft, and T1 are able to read that and take it away. So it's a tough call here. Zeri feels very good with all of the shielding that she will be able to receive here. and then they can save counter pick for support. So if it's not a threatening lane like a Caitlyn lane here for Keria, then perhaps you end up playing the Lulu, and then you have even more shielding to come through. But it will likely be based on what comes through here, because Caitlyn feels like it's probably the best bet to try to get some prio there bottom side. Maybe the Nidalee can play through this a little bit. Otherwise, you know, if you're really going for like a Draven Renata, you're going all in, you could do something like that. But the Caitlyn just seems pretty obvious here.
Yeah, a bit of pushing power. Let's see whether they stick to as much lane pressure as possible. Yeah, there it is. The Lux is going to come in. This means that T1 have zero range. There is, zero engage. There is no way for them to really start a fight outside of
Cassante?
Just try and poke them.
Yeah.
You know? And Cassante flanks are certainly going to be the way, but T1 needs to control the neutral. They need to be able to land this poke and stop KT from doing what they want to do.
It's 100% a lane pick to grab this Lux, but
Yeah.
it feels so terrible later on. I mean, also, like, she could use the singularity to see in the bushes. I guess that's
true.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's kind of a positive. There's not really much counterplay to that from KT Rolster, but
I thought you left all of your optimism in the last game, but you've got the optimism out for T1 here as well with this draft. And I don't mind it. Like, this is a poke comp, right? We've seen these work in the past. Frontline of just a Cassante is a little bit of a worry.
yeah, especially if this Jace can find any sort of angle, because normally when you're playing into Jace with a Cassante, you can stand in front of the Jace and make it difficult. You can stand in front of your teammates and make it difficult for the poke to come through. But if you don't know where the Jace is standing because there's brushes, you don't have vision, then Jace finds these incredible accelerated shock blast angles and hits your Lux, hits your Caitlyn, hits your mid laner, and then you're just at half health, and then you can't actually fight through the shields. So it's very impressive, again, what KT put together here. I think T1's answer was pretty interesting. Like, I don't think it's bad per se, but I feel like it is very risky and so reliant on that Nidalee getting ahead early, so reliant on that Caitlyn Lux lane getting massive advantages, which it should. In theory, one of the classic Zeri lane counters to push through and guarantee prio. Also the question of what Faker's form is going to look like on Corki today. You mentioned much better than his Tristana. This is game 3 of a very important series for both of these teams.
Yeah, I'm very interested in seeing what Perfect is going to look like on this Mordekaiser as well. Once again, it's the Ivan for Pyosik. See how he goes as we jump into the rift for game 3. I feel like the T1 fan chants are extraordinarily loud, but you can hear the emotion and the desperation from KT fans every time, and it's fantastic. As BDD, he has played this Jace in the past, quite a few times actually. I think, you know, him and Showmaker, 2 examples of players that really do like it. Chovy as well, as far as like just dominating lane with this mid Jace, often large CS gaps and things like that. We'll see how it does into the Corki here. Faker taking the fleet footwork just to try and make sure that he is as comfortable in this lane as possible.
I do really feel like the Jace spikes a little bit faster and a little bit harder than the Corki in some of those early skirmishes. You know, not necessarily at Grubs, but like first Herald, sometimes the first and second Dragon, you do end up getting a ton of value out of his burst damage. And BDD has been so good at not only laning on this pick, but winning big fights early for his squad. And the all-in power is there to the skies, coming in and just blowing up a single target. And if, you know, Zeus isn't there, for example, on a Dragon fight, there is no real front line here. And Faker can offer a lot of damage back with the Gatling gun. Remember, this is nerfed Corki.
Deft, I don't know whether you want to be there, buddy. Well, there's the Singularity going to come on through, and there is the Peacemaker as well. Not looking very peaceful, as Deft is going to start drinking a potion very early.
This is how you abuse an Ivern with bot lane prio with a Nidalee. This is a good sign for this draft, as T1 definitely know how to Nidalee. They have their licenses, and Pyosik is going to be set significantly behind here as a result of it.
Oh, yeah.
And this bottom lane is going to be constantly under threat.
Yeah, Pyosik now going to move on over. Will be able to start off his Krug camp. Should be able to at least, you know, take his top side pretty comfortably. But 3-0 for Pyosik on the Ivern. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because Pyosik spends some time in North America. I feel like North America actually plays a bunch more Ivern than we do here in the LCK. As Deft is just looking to try and stop Oner from being annoying. But he's still going to take a spear for his troubles.
And this does get BD and Faker involved as well briefly. And nothing really comes of this, just a Gromp delay, but now Deft is not able to farm the experience or the gold of the minions, which is pretty problematic.
He wasn't going to be able to anyway, but now he's definitely not able to.
Yeah, now he's like not able to even be near his turret. This is going to cause a bit of prio in mid.
Well, Pyosik going to come on over. Let's see what they can actually get done here. The flash has to be burnt. Faker going to get himself out of there as now T1. Let's see whether they can actually kill Beryl, who's going to flash the Q. That's nicely done. Spear going to connect there onto Deft. And already, we're seeing the power of this bottom lane. And
it's very strong, yeah.
This is something that, oh my goodness, okay. That's another one. As somehow, Beryl's going to be able to weave in the hook, but still, even as the hook is connecting, there is more poke being landed, and Deft is just continuing to have the most horrible time. The low range of this Zeri, a huge problem. And yeah, this is probably one of the best lanes that Gumayusi Keria have played together. Dates back quite some time.
Now, you know, this is a lane that, as you mentioned, they played together a lot. They played at Worlds, for example. Everyone remembers the Lux ban in Game 5 of 2022.
Yeah.
But the power of it outside of lane is often directly tied to how much you get done in lane and how much you can put the enemy AD carry down. Because there's that power trough as BDD.
Whoa, he's just flashing in, looking for Faker here. Can he find the autos? And there's the last one. Picks it up, doesn't die to the turret. Thank you very much, Pyosik, for the help, but that is first blood going to KT.
And he went electrocute this game. It's very powerful, very classic old school, but like I said, the burst and the potential of the early game picks is quite high, as now they're going to try to trade something back here in bottom.
Yeah, KT like, oh, not again. Why does this have to happen? As you can see, even in the mid lane, they're just going for a little bit of a reset. But T1 with full control of this bottom side of the map. Spear going to miss for now. And by the way, we are very, very close to 4,000 assists for BDD as well. Just need one more, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, he got the kill for that first blood. So next one, gonna have to be an assist.
Yeah, next time.
Deft made it to level 3, guys. It's not that over.
It's kind of over down here, but there are still other pressure points, including mid, which we already saw. And this CS gap is pretty massive, but we have seen bigger recoveries than this. It's just going to take a lot of effort, as once again, BDD putting heavy pressure onto Faker here. Already has that serrated Dirk, so you know, if they spend all of their resources trying to shut Deft out of the game, it will eventually come to be an issue that this Jace is very large. But if you compare BDD's advantage over Faker to Guma's over Deft, you won't be happy if you're a KT fan.
No. It's 18 to 50. It's kind of absurd. Oner going to move in, look for the spear onto BDD. Is Pyosik going to need to shield him? BDD just able to get the kill. Still, it's answered this time as the jungle is now facing off. Pyosik without too much firepower. And Deft continuing to get zoned. So yeah, I mean, BDD did have that kill. There's a hook onto Keria there at the same time as Beryl just desperately trying to do anything that he can. But he is now the one burning down. Deft trying to get anything done, as that's a last auto, and that is a dead Beryl in the 2v2. And T1 just demonstrating that this bottom lane, they still got it.
I mean, Beryl tried his best to try to get any sort of space here for Deft, but is unfortunately for him unsuccessful. Good spacing there from Guma on the follow-up autos. Takes Beryl out. Deft left alone here. At least he's the one who survives. At least maybe he can get some of that critical farm. Now, BDD picked up a second kill here in mid. It's not an assist, but it is big gold for him, so definitely a trade up. The kill goes over to a Nidalee. He uses gold better than an Ivern would have, as we'll watch this again.
Yeah, he's like, give me the shield, give me the shield.
Yeah, give me the shield, give me the bush. And down he goes. This is the first pick. I don't know if we'll get the second skirmish. Probably not.
나이스.
Yep.
Yep.
진짜 미쳤다 형. 쉴드 한 번만 더.
You're so good. You're insane, basically. And then this play, the shield this time not quite enough to stop the Nidalee from killing him.
Yeah, BDD is human after all. And here on the bottom side of the map, yeah, Deft and Beryl continuing to have just a terrible time.
Yeah, and I mean, okay.
Oh, speaking of terrible times, to the skies is Faker. Yeah, hands off keyboard here.
It's okay, they've got a backup AD carry in mid. It doesn't matter that this area isn't real. The Corki is starting to be less real all the time.
Yeah, although the Corki does have a farm. Deft, unfortunately, not as lucky. Does not have a farm this
No,
game.
he doesn't. He might need to call his old friend Chovy and see if he can get something from him. He's got a bunch of alpaca farms around the world, but
Yeah, he does. We need to get to New Zealand. The old memes is okay. Pyoshik coming on in as Oner does proc the Conqueror here as now Keria is looking to fight his old friend. Going to miss that one a lot, though, as there's the flash out from Keria, realizing that there's a lot of enemies coming. Oner taking a fair bit of damage here at the same time as Daisy getting amongst it.
And Deft, I mean, he is still massively behind, but what T1 have been able to gain from this is a pretty substantial amount of gold for their bottom lane, and they're trying to actually wipe this turret out. Looks like they will be successful on this wave, although the Iron Brush makes this very frustrating, so maybe not quite.
Yeah. Oh, God. All of the poke coming in. One more auto would have done it. There's a trap in the brush. Man, the brushes are actually making it more frustrating for KT, and they're being built by their jungler.
Yeah, this is really annoying to deal with, but they are keeping this turret alive for now.
I don't know whether this turret is really worth trying to save because there are 3 members of T1 down here. And the extender beam not really going to help out there as, okay, Root Caller does come on through. Gumayusi is going to get the heal, though, from the Primal Surge. And they try to do their best to take down the cannon, but that is not going to work.
So how well Caitlyn can utilize this gold is going to be the real question, because 40 CS down right now at 9 minutes, it feels like your life is over. It's definitely done so. It feels like the game is over. They're making some good plays mid. Barrel, insane hook here as that's Faker's 3rd of the game death. But if we get to a game state where KT could stabilize, right? I mean,
we just saw the replay.
Yeah.
Well, the Valkyrie going to get him out of here this time around.
Look at the gold here. He is sitting on 4,000 gold, by far the largest in the game. Well, BDD is also sitting at 4,000 gold, but again, when you look at the deficit, 1,600 is pretty big. But if we get to 25 minutes and he's still 30 CS ahead, that means much less later on. That whole turret he picked up means much less later on because of the strengths of KT's composition. So if you're a KT fan, don't feel good about the start to this game, but know that there is still hope. If you can win one team fight, you get map control, you set those Ivern brushes, maybe there's a world where you come back. But the Ivern is also massively behind at this point, isn't going to be offering the same sort of fast utility that we saw in Game 2. And Deft is just trying to find money anywhere he can get it. He's like, there's a turret over here, this is where I want to be. Just need to be able to get some minions.
And it's going to be hard because Gumayusi Keria also moved up towards his top side. And this 1v2 is not one that he's going to be too psyched about. Pyoshik is going to be over here. Hasten the Hold does come on through. Trigger Seed not quite there in time.
And it's interesting how Pyoshik has basically become the support in this game, and Barrel is just trying to get BDD ahead. He's like, no,
he's like the jungler, yeah.
Yeah, he's the jungler now. And Pyoshik is trying to keep turrets alive so that Guma doesn't get more money, and also so Deft can get as much money as he can here.
Ooh, Spear not going to connect on to Barrel. But like you say, I mean, this is just going to be more and more waves pushed in. BDD, very aggressive, understandably so. He's on a killing spree right now as there's the flash hook, gets the flash out of Gumayusi. Barrel is just unfazed.
No, he doesn't care.
Not even a little bit. BDD going to turn up. Oner is able to secure that one grub. And so that is 2 apiece here. KT looking to try and lock down their 3rd. And, oh, I thought that spear was actually going to be able to pick that one up. But good smite there from Pyoshik.
You can see T1 just aren't confident to fight this right now. They don't have any vision.
Ooh, okay, Life Binding does come on in. Peacemaker down as well as he's just dead. The final spark is going to be exactly that. And Barrel, this is the power of the poke composition being bared down right on top of him.
Really good punish there from T1, but KT still get the grubs, and the fact that they were able to control most of that fight until that binding landed gives you a little bit of hope that maybe they can pull something together here. But it is still looking so tough. Deft still 30 CS behind here, still hiding in a brush under a turret. Even Daisy needed here for him to just farm minions.
Yeah, and it's more plates. That's 2 of them going down. Barrel has respawned as Daisy comes out. Going to get the knock up onto the Lux. As now Gumayusi needs to be a little bit careful. Pyoshik getting down lower and lower. Daisy going to be destroyed. KT still searching for more. Hook is going to be avoided. Good sidestep. And now it's an honest 3v3 as the poke is starting to be turned around onto KT.
Merc Tread's done here for BDD, opting into this one instead of the plated steel caps we normally see into Corki, just because Faker is pretty irrelevant this time around. Keria is quite large, and he wants to be able to have some extra tenacity so he can really be the carry, because he needs to go into point-blank range to actually win some of these mid-game team fights, and those bindings are going to be super frustrating to deal with. if Beryl doesn't get hit by this, then they win the objective and lose nothing, but it's just a really good snipe there from Keria. Picks up a lot of extra gold, so this bottom lane continues to be so far ahead. Still a bit of a hole in the mid lane, but Faker only 10 CS behind. He has a farm, as you said, and
yeah,
Deft is still struggling to get the foundation of his. But the main carry in this game is going to have to be BDD, and it is going to be KT somehow, some way trying to wrestle that prio away. Because as we saw in the Grub fight, if they have it, T1's comp can do very little.
Yeah. We'll need to see whether KT can actually get to a point where they're actually capable of utilizing the power of this composition, right? I think the Mordekaiser can be pivotal against compositions like this that really do need to have a man advantage as Beryl. Hello, friend. That is going to be losing Singularity, finding a bit of damage, but not able to get the light binding, and so therefore Beryl will survive. But certainly always looking for angles is Beryl this game. Koshik going to turn up. And Deft 91, so it's still 40 CS. So like you were talking about, I mean, this is about the deficit that it's been the entirety of the game. Stendo Beam coming forward. And Deft just doing his very best, this time underneath the turret doing okay. As the net not going to connect onto the Zeri and Oner. Now looking for BDD. I don't know about that one, as BDD is very scary. That Shock Blast, my god, the damage. That is a 3 kills Jace. You cannot be here as, okay, there is the flash away from the light binding. I don't think it was going to hit, but BDD did not want to take his chances.
Big risk there from Oner, though. It did require a lot of help there. Still ends up getting away with his life, has the heal, and will be okay, but you could see the potential of what could have gone wrong there. Good flash from BDD. And we're starting part 2, this time on the Herald, but this time T1 a lot more control than they had the last.
Yep, Ace and Hole going to come on through as there is the depth charge onto the Nidalee. He's burning, but so's Beryl, and there's Faker picking up his first kill. T1 now with a big advantage, but not necessarily in the health bars. Still, the Rift Herald should be secured here. And T1 just making this win lane, win game composition work for them.
And the final spark was massive there as well, ripping through those health bars, making it so that there was no way KT could try to follow up and punish those low health bar champions on the side of T1. And that's the Herald going over. And T1's lead is just becoming so big at this point. Sure, it was a big ultimate from Deft, and yes, he has high damage output, but Guma's got an IE. They have a relatively farmed Lux as well. It does have Zazax in the inventory and completed, so that's some extra burst damage as well.
Yeah, Shirelli is coming in relatively soon as there's some redemption damage, and the flash forward from Beryl. Gumayusi, he does not have his flash available. Root Caller comes down, there's the hook. BDD's like, give me my fourth, and he'll be able to pick that one up. Deft, a little bit sad that he doesn't get the kill. It would be pretty good for KT to give the Zeri something, but still staying within that 40 CS gap range.
Yeah.
And now finally has an item.
A little bit of shutdown gold there, and I mean, this is, unfortunately for KT, a bit of a bridge too far. Beryl's able to block the Ace and the whole damage, and then they go straight in onto the Nidalee, but he flashes away. Beryl takes all that final spark damage, and unfortunately that is, with the combo down for BDD, not really much else they could do. Redemption to start this one off, and then Beryl flashes here to get the root and tries to hold Guma in place. And then, yeah, the slow here from Pyoshik's Glacial Augment is going to spell disaster along with the root there. And Beryl, he's trying to do it again a bit early. Okay, I was going to say a bit early. BDD needs a little bit more time. He doesn't have teleport just yet.
Yeah, just having a bit of a Hex Flash time.
So we had accidental Funnolution. We might be looking at accidental Funnel Jace in this game. I don't know if he's going to be able to get it done against all the Fed members of T1, but he's trying.
I think Griffin actually tried that one too.
Oh,
back in the day. It also definitely didn't work. But look, it's just, you know, sometimes finally it needs to get some redemption. As here in the mid lane, some plants go up, and so does Daisy and Beryl. He's on the prowl once again. Gumayusi going to be in trouble here as Perfect is just going to put him into the death realm. What are you going to do about it? And the answer is die. And then a whole bunch of stats now go over to this Mordekaiser. Hooks connecting, but the final spark is just going to end them. The all-out comes through from Zeus, and now the flash forward Deft smells blood in the water and wants to get some sort of kill here as Zeus getting himself out. BDD presses W, but I don't know whether they're going to be able to quite find it as finally the kill comes in. The answer's there from KT. The kills are even. It's a bloodbath. But I don't even necessarily know who's in the best position to win.
I mean, when you look at how these fights have been going, it's like Keria is doing the most damage.
Yeah.
Guma's doing a little bit, right? And this time just ulted out. You mentioned, hey, if you have the man advantage, you win these, and it's Riftmaker on the Mordekaiser, so he actually ends up winning these duels quite well. Perfect blast coning his way in, flashes for the ultimate here, puts him in the Death Realm, and then look at Guma. There's just nothing he can do. Perfect doesn't even have to shield until he gets out of the ultimate, and they can just kind of casually walk back. As Faker shows up super late, but just gets instantly hit by barrel, and then this final spark is massive, and without it, this is a huge win for KT. It still is ultimately a big win for them, as Deft is starting to kind of sort of be relevant in this game. I don't know if we should watch the whole thing, but anyway, they end up killing Zeus here as well. In the meantime, the mid turret goes down, and that is a big tool gone for KT to mitigate some of the aggressive pressure of this Caitlyn as she's trying to get out of her trough.
Yeah, exactly, and KT, without an outer turret in mid lane, it is going to be even more difficult, right, for them to get towards these neutral objectives. And I think, like, Perfect being able to park himself in the banana brush and actually get access to Gumayusi is a big part of this. And it's something that T1 are going to try and desperately stop from happening as this game goes on.
Look at this gold here in turrets. 3,000 nearly for T1. All in that turret, in the bottom lane and the plates, of course, top side. Then they got that turret mid.
It does mean the standing gold argument is a decent one, but the problem is that if the map control continues the way it is, then KT will never be able to actually cash that in.
You say that, but I mean, I do agree with you. It's tough for them to get map control, but they keep getting it on these objectives and then taking these fights that are way closer than they should be. In T1, I mean, the fact that last fight was so close is a worrying sign. Now, I don't think Perfect is going to get the flash ult on the Guma a second time in this game, but it does make you wonder if T1, will be able to crack this composition if KT could stabilize ever in this game. Pick up some of that standing gold you're talking about, get map control for even just a second, because if they do get that map control, as unlikely as it seems, it feels like this is a winnable game for them. I'm not going to predict it, but never count this squad out, because we've seen already some crazy stuff in this game. BDD is extremely powerful, already hit that 2-item spike. Muramana is transformed.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But I think that if T1 can keep playing their game plan, then that sort of standing gold argument isn't quite as valuable.
If you can't break the turrets, you can't get
They have to do the hard thing first,
yes.
like, is what I'm saying. And that is going to be winning more team fights here for KT. And I think this gentleman that we can see on our screen right now is going to be a big part of that. This Jace is just massive in this game.
Collector is now done for Guma as well, to just sitting on a Shiv and a Zeal. For Deft, at least the Shiv lets him farm better, and that 30 CS deficit is just going to kind of be permanently there, but he will eventually get a second item. He will eventually be a little bit more relevant. It's BDD that T1 need to worry about.
Yep.
And they also, again, you pointed this out in draft, which is one of the biggest issues, is they didn't have any engage. And if KT just sit on a bush, then it's really tough. And if they can slow play it and Jace can hit a few shock blasts before the fight goes off, then suddenly Deft just presses R and he cleans up the team fight. It's very easy, obviously, to itemize here as Zeus into this comp. Just wants to become very tanky, wants to be a big frontline for this Jace. And he has a big role to play in how they win these fights, because he is going to be the one who absorbs those shock blasts.
Oh, yeah.
In an ideal world here for T1.
Yeah, Faker also now has the Muramana transformation. 1, 3, and 3, and it was looking really dire for Faker in the beginning of this game, but has since been able to keep up in farm and has made it to that 2-item spike that we talk about so many times for the Corki. So not necessarily fully out of the woods, but certainly feeling better than the way Deft is at this point in time, sitting on, like you mentioned before, just the Zeal. All right, going to not necessarily find the target as Keria just explodes. Beryl's going to be traded, but now BDD, he's on the prowl. The all-out angle is going to be there for Zeus, and he drags the Jace into the team. Gorgeously played from the man in the top lane, and that is going to give T1 the edge.
Perfect ult from Zeus, the angle through the edge of the Baron pit. He gets the perfect diagonal there, and T1 back in the fight, because now KT without the Jace cannot continue to contest. And after Keria got caught there, it looked like maybe this was a winnable team fight for KT, but it's Zeus who shows up the perfect time. Flash out from BDD, but it's not enough to save him as he's yoinked across the wall there, abducted.
That is so much money as well. I think he was sitting on another bounty. So it's exactly the person that KT didn't want dying in that moment. Moonstone now completed for Pyoshik though. They're getting more and more items put together, but we credited them for a great composition.
Great route here from Pyoshik, and then Barrel follows up on it. His life is traded, but also, you know, 4/5 of the health bar of Oner is also gone. As watch this. A wraparound.
Beautiful angle.
So clean. So calm in the calms. Like, I would say a bit frantic, but very, very much like, you know, when you look at his play, his movement there, he knew the angle he could potentially find. He was able to find it. Pulls him out, and Runins is done for Deft. It is a very big spike for the Zeri. Yep, but again, it feels like miracles are required here. We keep seeing picks, we keep seeing punish because Keria has to go so far up to try to set up these bindings to then maybe allow for a blow up, allow for the spear to connect. Need to play a little bit more cautiously, I feel, because there's no role in which KT should be able to wrestle back control, but every fight has looked relatively close. Like Zeus' heroics are why they were able to actually trade up, or at least trade one back. I mean, with the shutdown, massive trade up for T1.
I do still feel like it's going to be hard. Like, if you imagine T1's composition, like, trying to do a Baron, right? Like, KT have so much engage, so many of these angles to set up to try and answer, that it can be quite difficult as they are doing the Dragon. It's very easy to do Dragon when there's actually no one around.
Infernal again.
And that is that's a high value one. So 2 Drakes going over to T1 as Final Spark going to be thrown towards Perfect. They want to be able to get this bounty gold for taking down the turret. There's the ace in the hole, and Def takes half of his health bar. That hurts a lot.
Yeah.
Rapid Fire Cannon going to be the 3rd one here for Gumayusi.
Definitely a huge spike for him once he has that. I feel like that's the moment where we're like, okay, he's well and truly out of the trough. He had a massive gold lead, but you still are Caitlyn. It's still kind of awkward to play out the mid game. He was given the mid turret as well, so has been really playing quite well with the advantages he had. Did get ulted by Perfect that one time, but now once he has the RFC, he can just one-shot people basically, and he's going to be running around the map, and if he finds Deft is going to have a hard time winning that duel even with a barrier.
Oh yeah.
And we've seen this game seemingly be so much closer, I feel like, than it needed to be, and Perfect now has his 2nd item as well. So he can use the dash cannon to close the gap on Guma, maybe even Faker as well, or just pull Zeus out of the fight so the shock blast value could be high. I see so many angles here for KT, and while they ended up losing out on this area lane to this Caitlyn, which felt so obvious, it feels like otherwise their draft is so robust that there are ways back in. Like, I keep having to tell everyone that it's not over because it looks very over, but I don't trust yet, Atlas.
Yeah, no, I don't know either. And it's I think a product of what we've seen from both of these teams recently. We've seen genius and we've seen failure, and we just don't know what's going to happen in any given moment.
And Barrel's confidence this game is just off the charts. Despite the deficit, he has just not given up. He's always fishing for the angles.
Oh yeah.
And he's been pretty successful. Yeah, he's 0-5-3, but he's gotten really some really critical moments for KT.
I'm just looking for the next one, seeing whether they can find another angle. BDD, of course, he's going to be the main character.
Getting 2 BDD in these fights is the tricky part. You know, they had the Zeus Cassante engage on him last time around, but how do you close the gap on this Jace? Maybe you just simply weather the storm and have the Caitlyn do the work, you front to back it.
Yeah.
Because trying to set up an engage or a pick is so challenging.
Oh, Keria going to be able to find a bit of a combo. There's the spear to land as well. Barrel is just dead. They find the pick, they set up the vision, and they're going to look for a Baron off the back end of it.
Keria has been so essential in finding these bindings to actually punish this aggressive positioning from Barrel.
Well, there is going to be vision going into this Baron pit. Pyoshik does have his flash available. Can he be the hero is the question. The answer is no. Zeus just said, get out of here. The Baron's going to be secured. Daisy's going to be taken down first. Pyoshik is destroyed, and T1 just snowball the fight so beautifully. Yes, Perfect is able to kill a Lux, but I think Keria did his job this game. Faker going to be able to lock down that kill. It's now 12-8. The gold lead is skyrocketing.
And it's going to get even worse. I mean, the game is not going to end off of this Baron very likely unless KT make a big mistake, but I think it is essentially now over. You know, I was saying I wasn't sure, I wasn't feeling confident that they were going to be able to close this one out with no engage, no traditional engage, no pick potential unless Keria finds the binding. But he keeps finding them. He found that one on the barrel. They get a Baron. KT absolutely get dunked on in the fight. And then Baron is up, and it's already 3,000 gold. The power play, 4,000 here with this turret going down in inner and top side. And now I feel like there is just too much of a lead. There is no way to come back for KT. This was certainly one of the picks of all time as they just press all the buttons on him. Oner tosses in the spear, ace in the hole.
The ace in the hole was just there to celebrate, I think.
And then when you see this, you're like, okay, well, maybe Pyosik gets in. No, Zeus actually says, no, I'm going to flash, push him out, then, you know, abduct him, and there's no jungle angle here. It's not going to happen. BD goes in on this Cassante, but there's so much follow-up damage from Guma. It looks like Zeus is actually two-shotting him, but it's Guma over the wall, just popping him. And yes, Perfect does get the flank and takes Keria out, but his sacrifice was legendary, and it's probably what's going to win T1 this telecom war.
Yep. Hook is going to miss here as T1 are just going to bear down on this inhibitor. Zeus says thanks for the gap close as Perfect's going to pull him in. That is barrel dead for the 7th time this game. And KT just looking like there is absolutely nothing that they can do. We praised them for the draft, but things went so wrong in the early game. There was no way for them to utilize it in any way, shape, or form. Nexus turret's going down. T1 going to get some revenge against KT. They're going to move to 4th place in the LCK, and they're going to send KT to 7th with a victory here. Deft is trying to kite his way out of this one, but he's not going to be able to. He wanted to kite his way out of the early game. This is the way that he gets